The night sky above the alien palace shimmered with soft purple lights, and two moons watched silently from high above. Inside the palace garden, the marble paths glowed faintly under blue lanterns. Every leaf looked clean, every petal perfect. And somewhere between the glowing flowers sat a small alien girl, the princess of the empire, silent as a shadow. She never spoke. No one had ever heard her voice. They called her the Silent One. Some said her voice carried an ancient curse, others said she simply had no soul to speak with. But no one dared to ask the Empress about it. In another corner of the palace, a human janitor named Evan pushed his cleaning cart slowly through the marble hallway. He was not from this world. He had come here with a small group of humans hired for low jobs, cleaning, repairing, maintaining machines. Evan never complained. He worked hard every single night, and when morning came, he returned home to his small quarters to take care of his little daughter, Mia. Evan was a single father. His wife had died years ago on a mining moon. Life had been hard since then, but he never stopped smiling for Mia. She was his whole world. That night, while cleaning the garden floor, Evan noticed movement near the fountain. A tiny figure sat alone, thin, pale, and dressed in soft silver fabric. It was the princess. No guards were near. No maids dared to approach. She sat there staring at the water like she was waiting for something that never came. Evan froze for a moment. He knew the rules. No one speaks to the royal family without permission. But something in the way she sat, so lonely, so small, made his heart ache. He quietly stepped closer to the fountain, careful not to disturb her. His broom scraped the stone, breaking the silence for a second. The princess turned her head. Her eyes were strange, large and shining like crystal, but filled with deep sadness. Evan quickly bowed his head, whispering, "Sorry, Your Highness." "I didn't mean to bother you." No answer came. Just silence. He continued sweeping, pretending not to notice her. But after a few minutes, he felt her gaze still on him. He risked a small glance and saw her watching him move the broom back and forth, her eyes following every slow motion. He smiled a little. "You know," he said softly, "my daughter says cleaning helps calm the mind. Maybe that's why I do it so much." Still no response. But this time the princess blinked once, then again, like she was trying to understand his words. Evan chuckled quietly. "Yeah, I guess you don't talk much," he said gently. That's okay. My little girl used to be shy too." As he spoke, he bent down to pick up a piece of broken crystal near the fountain's edge. The shard slipped and cut his hand. He winced quietly, a drop of red blood staining the white stone. The princess's eyes widened. For the first time, she moved. She stood up, her step slow but unsure, and reached out her delicate hand. Evan stared in surprise. "It's fine," he said softly. "Just a scratch," but she didn't stop. She knelt in front of him, her hand trembling as she looked at the cut. Then carefully, she tore a small piece of silk from her own dress and wrapped it around his finger. Her hands were cold, trembling like she'd never touched anyone before. Evan didn't move. He just watched her. This quiet, fragile being who everyone said was cursed, showing kindness without words. When she finished, she looked up at him again. Her lips moved slightly like she wanted to say something, but no sound came. Only a soft breath escaped her throat. Evan smiled gently. "It's okay," he whispered. "You don't have to talk. You already said enough." The princess stared at him, confused yet calm. For a brief moment, her alien eyes seemed to glow brighter, as if a hidden light inside her was waking up. High above them, in the hidden royal chamber, the Empress stood before a holographic screen. She had been watching everything. The human janitor, his cut, her daughter's reaction. When the princess reached out and touched the human's hand, a tear fell from the Empress's eye. She quickly wiped it away, afraid her guards would see. No one in the palace knew that the Empress had ordered her daughter's silence long ago, believing the old prophecy that said the princess's voice could bring disaster to their world. But watching that moment on the screen, something broke inside her. For the first time in years, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I was wrong." Down in the garden, Evan looked up at the night sky. "You see those stars?" he said softly to the princess. "Humans used to make wishes on them." The little alien girl turned her gaze upward. Her small lips moved again, just a faint motion. But this time, Evan thought he heard the tiniest breath of sound. He smiled. That's it. Don't be afraid to whisper." And far away in her chamber, the Empress placed a trembling hand over her mouth, because she heard it too. A single broken whisper that carried through the security feed. The silent princess had made her first sound. And the Empress began to cry. Morning light broke through the crystal windows of the alien palace, filling the halls with soft gold. The world outside buzzed with life, but inside, a strange silence still surrounded the young alien princess. Everyone in the palace talked about what happened in the garden. Some said it was a lie. Others whispered that the human janitor had used forbidden tricks. And yet no one dared to confront the Empress. The rumor spread quickly. The silent princess had moved her lips, had made a sound. In the lower servants' hall, Evan cleaned the long corridor with his usual calm smile. He didn't know people were whispering about him. To him, it was just another morning, another day to earn enough credits to feed his daughter Mia. But something felt different. Guards now stood at corners where none had been before. Their golden eyes followed his every move. He kept sweeping quietly, pretending not to notice. In his heart, though, he worried. Had he done something wrong? He had only helped a child. Later that evening, as the twin moons rose, he returned to the garden again. His duties often took him there. The same soft breeze blew through the silver leaves, and the same gentle hum of alien insects filled the air. And she was there, the princess, sitting beside the fountain again. This time she wasn't alone. A small robotic guardian floated near her shoulder, glowing faintly red, scanning everything. But when Evan stepped forward, the robot didn't attack. It simply watched. Evan gave a small smile. "Hello again, Your Highness," he said kindly, keeping his voice low. The princess turned. For the first time, there was a spark in her eyes. Not fear, not confusion, but something new. Recognition. He knelt a few feet away, beginning to wipe dust off the marble tiles. "You remember me, don't you?" he said gently. "I wanted to thank you for helping with my hand. It's better now." He held it up, showing the small silk cloth still tied around his finger. Her eyes fell on it, and her pale cheeks warmed slightly, a faint shade of silver blush coloring them. "I kept it," he added softly, "because it was from someone brave." The princess blinked, her hands trembling. Then she did something that shocked even the robot beside her. She raised her hand and slowly imitated his sweeping motion, like she wanted to help clean. Evan froze, then laughed quietly. "You want to help me?" She nodded once. It was small, unsure, but it was a yes. For the next few minutes they moved in silence, him sweeping, her mimicking. The sound of the broom brushed softly against the floor, mixing with the whisper of wind and water. Then, unexpectedly, a small voice from behind said, "Papa." Evan turned quickly. His daughter Mia ran into the garden holding a small lunchbox. "You forgot your food again," she said with a big smile. He sighed softly. "Mia, you can't be here. This is a royal." But before he could finish, the princess stood. She looked at the little human girl curiously. Two children from two worlds stared at each other in silence. Mia tilted her head, then smiled brightly. "Hi," she said. "I'm Mia." The princess didn't respond, but her eyes softened. Mia took a step closer and held out a small toy, a tiny music box shaped like a bird. "It plays songs," she said proudly, pressing the button. A gentle melody filled the garden, light and sweet. The princess's eyes widened. She reached out her hand slowly, hesitating, then touched the toy bird. The soft music echoed through her fingers. She gasped. A faint, shaky sound escaped her lips. Evan froze. Mia's eyes widened in wonder. The princess looked frightened, as if she'd broken some law. But Mia laughed. "It's okay. You sound pretty." The princess looked down, confused. Then she whispered, barely a breath, "Thank you." Evan's heart skipped a beat. The sound was so soft it could vanish with the wind. But it was real. Above them, hidden inside her dark chamber, the Empress watched again through the secret screens. Her eyes widened and she leaned forward. The sound, the faint whisper of her daughter's voice, echoed in the room like a forgotten dream. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered to herself, "My child." She spoke, but joy quickly turned to fear. She remembered the old prophecy. When the Silent One speaks, the old power will awaken. The Empress clenched her fists. No one must know, she said, trembling. Down below, Evan smiled at the princess. See, that wasn't scary, was it? She shook her head shyly, and for the first time she smiled back. The garden lights flickered softly, almost like the stars themselves were watching. Evan felt something deep inside him shift, a strange connection forming like invisible threads of warmth between three souls from different worlds. But as they laughed quietly together, a shadow moved among the trees. A tall guard stood hidden, recording everything through his visor. And far above, in the cold chamber of the palace, the Empress stood alone, her tears falling silently as she whispered, "What have I done?" Because in that moment she realized her daughter had not only found her voice, she had found her heart. And the Empress feared what her empire would do when they discovered who had awakened it. The next few days passed quietly in the great alien palace. But something invisible had changed. The once silent princess now waited each evening near the garden fountain. Her eyes always turned toward the gate, waiting for the human janitor and his little daughter to appear. Evan came every night, pushing his cleaning cart, and Mia skipped beside him, humming softly. She carried her toy music bird everywhere now. And every time it played, the princess would listen, eyes half closed, as if the sound spoke to a place in her heart that had been locked away for years. None of the guards dared stop them, though many whispered behind their masks. "The human is breaking royal law," one said. "If the Empress finds out, he'll vanish before morning." But the Empress already knew. She was watching everything from her hidden room, through her secret holographic screens. Yet she didn't stop them. Not this time. Something inside her needed to see more, to understand what was happening to her child. That night the garden was bathed in soft green light. The air smelled of moonflowers and the sound of alien insects echoed like gentle bells. Evan sat on the marble edge of the fountain, cleaning one of the palace lanterns. Mia sat cross-legged near the princess, teaching her how to play with tiny glowing stones from her pocket. "Look," Mia said, placing two stones close together. "If you press them, they shine brighter." The princess hesitated, then copied her. The stones lit up in her pale hands, glowing softly. She smiled, a real open smile, and Mia laughed. Evan watched them with quiet warmth. "You two seem to be getting along," he said softly. The princess looked up at him. "Mia," she whispered, almost too quietly to hear. "Yes." "That's my name." Mia giggled. "You remembered." The alien girl tilted her head as if tasting the word. "Mia," she repeated again, clearer this time. Her voice was gentle, musical, like a note from a forgotten song. Evan froze. He hadn't heard such beauty in years. Even the air seemed to pause to listen. But before he could say anything, the princess placed a small glowing stone into Mia's hand and said, "Friend." Mia gasped. "You can talk. You can talk." The princess blinked, frightened by her own voice. She looked down, hands trembling. Evan gently placed his hand over hers. "It's okay," he said softly. "No one will hurt you here." At that moment, far away in her dark chamber, the Empress's eyes filled with tears again. Her daughter's voice, so soft, so human, echoed through the speakers. The Empress whispered, "You sound like the stars when they sing." But not everyone shared her quiet awe. Inside the palace council chambers, words spread fast. A royal guard who had secretly recorded the moment showed the footage to a high priest. The man's eyes narrowed. "So the prophecy begins," he hissed. "If she speaks again, the balance will break. The Empress must be warned." Back in the garden, Mia and the princess laughed quietly together. They built tiny towers from stones and petals, their fingers glowing under the moonlight. Evan leaned back, looking up at the sky. "You know," he said softly, "on Earth, we believe everyone has a voice. Some just need someone to listen before they can use it." The princess looked at him curiously. "Earth," she whispered. "Home?" He smiled sadly. "Yes, my home. Far away now." For a moment, she looked into his eyes with strange understanding. "You miss," she said slowly, trying to form the words. He nodded. "Every day." Silence followed, peaceful, warm. The sound of water and wind surrounded them. But that calm didn't last. A sharp metallic sound cut through the air. A small hover drone appeared above the fountain, blinking red. It projected a message onto the wall. "By order of the council, all human contact with royal blood is forbidden. The drone's voice was cold, mechanical. Failure to obey will result in termination. Mia jumped in fear. The princess stood up quickly, shielding her small human friend with her body. Her eyes glowed bright silver for a moment, defiant, protective. Evan stepped forward. "It's okay," he said firmly, raising his hands. "We're not doing anything wrong." The drone hovered, scanning them, then flew away into the night. The garden fell silent again, but the warmth had vanished. Evan knew things would not stay peaceful much longer. He gently knelt beside the princess. "You should go inside, Your Highness," he said softly. "I don't want you in trouble because of me." The princess shook her head. "No," she whispered. You made me alive." Evan's heart tightened. He wanted to say something, but words failed him. Mia grabbed the princess's hand. "We'll be okay. I promise." The princess looked at her new human friends one last time before guards arrived to escort her away. As she disappeared into the palace shadows, her small voice echoed through the night. Fragile but brave. "Evan. Mia. Thank you." The garden lights flickered out one by one, and far above in her lonely chamber, the Empress stared at the recording of her daughter's smile, tears sliding down her face as she whispered. She found her voice. "But the world will try to take it away." She closed the hologram and turned toward the stars, her heart heavy. The echoes of her daughter's whisper still lingered in the air, soft, beautiful, and dangerous. Because in a world that feared emotions, one small voice had just awakened something far greater than anyone could control. The Empress sat alone in her private chamber, surrounded by silence and shadows. The walls shimmered with faint blue light from the recording screen that played before her. Again and again she watched the moment when her daughter, the silent princess, had spoken. Just 2 words, "Thank you." Simple, small, yet powerful enough to shake the heart of a ruler who had not felt warmth in decades. Her trembling hands touched the screen, tracing her child's smiling face. A single tear rolled down her silver cheek. "You spoke," she whispered to herself. "After all these years, you spoke because of a human." But as the tear fell, a cold voice echoed behind her. "Your Majesty," said High Counselor Varun, bowing deeply. "It is time to discuss the danger." The Empress turned slowly, hiding her emotion behind her regal mask. "Danger?" she asked softly. "Yes," Varun said, his eyes sharp like blades. "The prophecy. The silent air has spoken. The old texts say her voice will awaken the ancient storms, the ones that nearly destroyed our ancestors. And it all began with that human janitor." The Empress's hands clenched tightly on the throne's arms. "He is innocent," she said quietly. "He did not harm her." "Innocent?" Varun sneered. "Humans have always been dangerous. Their kind brings chaos wherever they go. If the princess speaks again, Your Majesty, the council will act, even if you will not." The Empress's heart throbbed painfully. She dismissed him with a flick of her hand, but his words stayed like poison in her mind. When he left, the chamber felt colder than before. That night, the Empress couldn't sleep. She stood near her window, looking out over the shining city below, the towers glowing under twin moons. She remembered the day her daughter was born, the prophecy whispered by the temple seers. Her first cry will break the sky. Her voice must never rise. Fear had ruled her heart since then. She had kept her daughter silent, not out of cruelty, but out of terror. And yet the human had done what no alien doctor, no priest, no healer could. He had brought her daughter's voice back with kindness. The Empress whispered into the dark. What if they were wrong? Her question hung in the air like forbidden music. Down below, in the servant quarters, Evan sat on his small bed, staring at his sleeping daughter. Mia clutched the little toy bird tightly. Its soft melody filled the small room, slow and sad. Evan sighed. "I think we're in trouble, kiddo," he whispered. Big trouble. He didn't know that outside. Hidden eyes were already watching through the windows. 2 armored guards stood in the shadows, whispering into their comms. Confirming target, one said. Human janitor located. Orders from the council detain at sunrise. The other hesitated. But the Empress? The Empress doesn't control this anymore, the first replied coldly. The council does. Meanwhile, the Empress went to the Hall of Memories, an ancient place filled with crystal pillars that recorded the thoughts of past rulers. She placed her hand on one glowing column, and a deep voice echoed through her mind. It was her own mother's memory. Power means protection, the old voice said. But love, my daughter, love can destroy empires. The Empress whispered, trembling. And what if love is the only thing that saves one? Her reflection shimmered on the crystal floor. For the first time, she no longer saw a ruler. She saw a mother. A mother who had hidden her child's light for too long. A decision began to form in her heart. She summoned her secret guard, a tall woman named Kale, one of the few she trusted. Go to the lower quarters, the Empress ordered softly. Find the human janitor and his daughter. If the council moves before I can stop them, protect them. At any cost, Kale hesitated. Your Majesty, if the council learns of this, they will. The Empress interrupted, her voice firm. But by then it will be too late. Kyle bowed deeply. As you command. Before dawn, as pale light touched the palace towers, the council made its move. Soldiers in silver armor surrounded the servants' wing. Doors were kicked open, orders shouted. Evan woke to the sound of boots on metal floors. He grabbed Mia, holding her close. Stay quiet, he whispered. But before the soldiers could reach their door, Kale appeared, moving like a shadow. Her blade flashed once, cutting through the council's seal. Come with me, she said sharply. Now, Evan stared at her, confused. Who are you? Someone who still believes in mercy, she replied. Mia clutched her father's hand tightly as Kale led them through a hidden passage that wound deep beneath the palace. Up above, the Empress stood before the council hall, her golden robe flowing like sunlight. No one touches the human, she commanded coldly. He is under my protection. Varun stepped forward, eyes burning with anger. You risk our empire for a cleaner. Your own daughter's curse will destroy us. The Empress looked at him with tears in her eyes, but her voice was strong. You call it a curse. I call it hope. The hall fell silent. For the first time in her reign, the Empress's tears were not hidden. They shimmered under the lights like diamonds, proof that the cold ruler of the empire was still a mother, still human in her heart and far below. As Evan and Mia ran through the secret tunnels, a quiet voice echoed behind them. The princess had awakened again, standing in her chamber, whispering into the night, Mother. The sound reached the Empress's heart like a promise, a whisper strong enough to defy an empire. The palace that once glowed with calm silver light now felt like a storm waiting to break. Soldiers filled the corridors, scanning every corner, every servant's face. The royal council had taken control. Their command was clear. Find the human janitor, capture the girl, and silence the princess before she speaks again. Evan and Mia were already far from the main halls. The secret guard, Kyle, led them through dark tunnels beneath the palace. The air smelled of dust and old metal, and the only light came from a faint blue torch she carried. Where are we going? Evan whispered, holding Mia close. To the old chambers, Kale said, her voice firm. No one uses them anymore. They were built before the first Empress. You'll be safe there, for now. Evan could tell she was tense. Every step echoed too loudly. He wanted to ask why she was helping them, but deep inside, he already knew. It was because of the Empress. Above them, the Empress stood in the council hall, facing a dozen alien leaders seated in a circle of light. High Counselor Varun's voice thundered, Your Majesty, the human is a threat. He has bewitched your daughter. His kind infects weakness. We must destroy him before the prophecy comes true. The Empress rose slowly. Her golden crown caught the light like fire. He did nothing but show kindness, she said coldly. He made my daughter smile. That is no curse. Varun slammed his fist against the table. The girl's voice can destroy us all. The ancient text, enough! The Empress shouted, her voice echoing across the hall. The guards froze. The texts were written in fear. I will not let fear rule us again. The chamber fell silent. For a brief moment, no one spoke. But Varun's eyes burned with rage. He leaned forward and whispered to his generals, If the Empress will not protect us, we will protect ourselves. The seeds of rebellion had been planted. Meanwhile, in the hidden tunnels, Mia shivered and hugged her father's arm. Papa, she whispered, I'm scared. Evan smiled weakly. It's okay, sweetheart. I won't let anything happen to you. Kyle stopped suddenly and raised her hand. Quiet, she hissed. From above, faint footsteps echoed, metallic, organized, searching. She looked up toward the cracks in the ceiling and saw red laser lights moving across the floor. They're scanning the lower levels. Can't we go back? Evan asked. There's no going back, Kale replied. The council wants blood. They continued deeper until the tunnel opened into a forgotten room filled with strange glowing crystals. Old carvings marked the walls, symbols of voices, stars, and light. "What is this place?" Evan asked. Cale glanced around. "The Chamber of Echoes. The first Empress used this place to speak with the stars. No one has entered it in centuries." Mia stepped closer to the crystals. They glowed softly under her touch. "It's pretty," she whispered, but something else began to happen. The air around them vibrated gently, as if the walls themselves were humming. Evan frowned. "Do you feel that?" Cale's eyes widened. "It's reacting?" To her voice. A faint whisper filled the air. Not Mia's, not Evan's, but another, delicate and distant. "Evan." He froze, that voice. He knew it. "The princess?" He breathed. The sound grew clearer, echoing through the chamber like a breeze through glass. "You are in danger," the princess whispered. "They are coming," Mia gasped. "She can talk to us from far away?" Cale looked pale. "She's using resonance." "That's impossible. Only those born with the royal blood can do that." "She's trying to warn us," Evan said quickly. "We have to move." But before they could escape, an explosion shook the tunnel. Dust rained from the ceiling. Voices shouted above them, "Seal the exits. Don't let them escape." Cale drew her blade. "Stay behind me." Evan shielded Mia as soldiers stormed through the entrance, their weapons glowing. Cale fought fiercely, moving like a shadow, her blade slicing through armor. But there were too many. A shot hit the wall beside Evan, throwing him backward. Mia screamed. The crystal chamber flashed with light, reacting to her fear. Then, suddenly, the crystals began to sing. A soft, beautiful tone filled the air, rising like music. The soldiers froze, their weapons shaking in their hands, and then, from every glowing stone, the princess's voice echoed again. Louder this time, full of emotion. "Stop." The command hit like thunder. The soldiers dropped their weapons, falling to their knees, clutching their heads. The sound wasn't violent, it was pure energy, calm but powerful. When the light faded, only silence remained. The soldiers lay unconscious. Kyle stood breathing hard, staring at the glowing crystals. "Her voice," she whispered. "It traveled through the stones." Evan helped Mia up, his eyes wide with awe. "She saved us." Above the palace, the Empress staggered in her chamber, hearing her daughter's echo ring through the air. She fell to her knees, tears flooding her eyes. She used her voice again, she whispered. "And it didn't destroy, it protected." But in the shadows of the council chamber, Varun smiled darkly. "Then it begins," he said. "If her voice can protect, it can also command. And no ruler should hold such power. Not even the Empress," he turned to his generals. "Prepare the purge." Deep below, as the last echoes faded, Mia clutched her father's hand. "Papa," she whispered. "The princess saved us." Why would they want to hurt her? Evan looked at her sadly. "Because some people fear what they don't understand." He looked toward the glowing crystals that still pulsed softly as if breathing. "But I think her voice was meant to heal, not destroy." Far away, the silent princess sat in her room, her hands trembling, her heart racing. She didn't know how she had done it, but she had felt them. And somewhere in the palace above, her mother's tears fell once more. Not from sorrow this time, but from the birth of hope. The twin moons hung low above the alien capital, casting pale light over the great palace. The night was too still, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Inside the royal hall, the Empress stood before her throne, surrounded by the murmurs of fear and doubt. Every council member's eyes burned with suspicion. They had all heard it, the voice of the princess. Her whisper had spread across the empire like a wave, echoing through crystal networks and resonating in every communication line. The Silent One had spoken. And with that, the old legend stirred again. High Counselor Varun stepped forward, his tone sharp. "Your Majesty, the entire empire," heard her voice. "Do you realize what this means? The power has awakened. You must surrender the throne before it consumes us all." The Empress's calm mask cracked slightly, but her voice stayed strong. "It means my daughter lives. It means hope has returned to us." "Hope?" Varun laughed bitterly. "You call it hope when the stars tremble? When our ships lost control for 10 seconds because of her whisper? This is no miracle, it's a weapon." The room erupted in shouting. Some feared the girl, others defended her. The Empress stood silent in the storm of voices, her heart breaking. She knew the truth. Her daughter's voice hadn't harmed anyone. It had stopped a battle in the skies, saved lives. Yet fear always spoke louder than truth. Finally, the Empress said softly, "If her voice can reach the stars, then perhaps it is time we start listening." Her words silenced the hall, but Varun's glare deepened. "Then you leave us no choice." He turned to his soldiers. "Seize the throne. The Empress is no longer fit to rule." Guards moved forward, hesitant but afraid to disobey. Meanwhile, deep below the palace, Evan, Mia, and Kyle waited inside the Chamber of Echoes. The glowing crystals had dimmed after saving them. The silence felt heavy now, filled with the faint hum of energy still lingering in the air. Evan paced back and forth. "We can't hide forever," he said quietly. "If they catch us, they'll blame us for all of this." Kyle nodded grimly. "They already do. The council believes your presence caused the awakening." Mia sat near the crystals, tracing light patterns with her fingers. "I can still hear her," she whispered softly. "The princess. She's scared." Evan knelt beside her. "You can?" "She's calling for her mother," Mia said. "She doesn't know why everyone's angry." Evan sighed. "She's just a child." She didn't mean to start anything. Then the walls began to hum again. The crystals glowed brighter, filling the chamber with silver blue light. A soft, trembling sound echoed through the air, the princess's voice clearer than ever. "Evan, Mia, my mother. They will hurt her, please." Her words broke into small sobs. Evan stood quickly. "We can't just stay here." Kale looked shocked. "You can't go up there. The council will kill you." He looked at her firmly. "If they touch the Empress, the princess will lose everything. I can't let that happen. I don't care what they think of humans, I'm going." Mia held his hand tightly. "I'm coming too." Kale sighed, realizing there was no stopping them. "Then we all go. For the Empress." The throne room burned with chaos when they arrived. The council's guards had surrounded the Empress, and Varun stood near the throne, shouting orders. "Take her away! The era of fear ends tonight." But then a new voice echoed through the grand hall. "Enough!" Everyone froze. The princess stood in the doorway, her small figure glowing with faint silver light. Her eyes shone with quiet strength. Behind her, the massive doors shut themselves, sealing the room with a deep echo. "Mother," she whispered. The Empress turned, tears flooding her eyes. "My child." But Varun stepped forward. "Do not listen to her. She carries the curse." The princess's gaze shifted to him. "No curse," she said softly. "Only love." Her voice rang like music through the air. The floor shimmered beneath her feet, and the crystal lights along the walls began to glow. The same energy that had once frightened the Empire now spread like warm sunlight. Varun tried to shout an order, but his voice failed. The soldiers dropped their weapons, their eyes softening as if their anger had been washed away. Evan stepped closer, holding Mia's hand. "It's her voice," he said in awe. "It's healing them." The princess raised her hands. "Please, stop fighting." And the Empire obeyed. Every communicator, every device, every ship orbiting above received her whisper. Across the stars, alien captains froze mid-battle. Soldiers lowered their weapons, and silence filled the skies. The Empress fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the light. Her daughter walked to her and gently placed a hand on her cheek. "No more fear, Mother." The Empress broke down in tears. You saved us all." Varun tried to resist, but the light surrounded him too. This is impossible," he gasped. The princess looked at him kindly. "You feared what you didn't understand." And with that, the light faded. The air turned still again. When the glow disappeared, the Empress was on her feet, her daughter standing proudly beside her. The council bowed their heads. Even Varun lowered his gaze. Evan stood quietly near the back, holding Mia. The Empress looked toward him and said softly, "You showed us what it means to be human. You gave my child her voice." Evan smiled humbly. "All I did was listen." That night, peace returned to the Empire. But far across the stars, whispers spread of a new kind of power. Not the power to destroy, but the power to heal through kindness. The silent princess's whisper had changed the Empire forever. And in that single sound, the human heart had finally been heard across the stars. The Empire that once feared sound now lived in song. Weeks had passed since the night the princess spoke before the throne and silenced a rebellion with nothing more than kindness. Her whisper had healed anger, ended centuries of fear, and changed the fate of millions. The Empress stood on the royal balcony overlooking the shining capital. Towers glittered under the twin suns, and from every corner of the city came music, soft melodies inspired by the little princess's voice. The people no longer called her the Silent One. They now called her the Voice of Peace. For the first time in history, human banners hung beside alien ones in the royal plaza. Evan, the humble janitor who had once swept the palace floors, now stood among ambassadors. But even now he wore the same old uniform. He said it reminded him of where everything began. Beside him stood his daughter Mia, wearing a small silver pendant gifted by the princess herself. As the ceremony began, the royal announcer's voice carried across the crowd. Today marks a new chapter in the history of the Empire, the day when compassion defeated fear. The Empress herself has declared this day to honor humanity. The Empress stepped forward, her robe shimmering like dawn. Her eyes searched the crowd until they found Evan and Mia. She smiled gently. "My people," she said, her voice soft yet powerful. "We once believed that silence was safety. We hid our hearts behind fear and forgot that strength does not come from control. It comes from understanding. A human showed us this truth." The crowd turned toward Evan. He felt his heart race as thousands of alien eyes watched him. The Empress continued. He did not wield power. He carried no weapon. Yet he conquered what our armies could not: our fear. Applause filled the plaza, echoing across the city like rolling waves. Mia looked up at her father proudly. "Papa, they're cheering for you," she whispered. Evan smiled softly. "No, sweetheart. They're cheering for hope." In the royal chamber away from the ceremony, the young princess sat near a window, humming to herself. She had learned to speak freely now, though her voice still carried the same soft melody that once frightened an empire. Beside her rested the toy music bird that Mia had given her. Its tiny wings flickered with light as it played a gentle tune. The Empress entered quietly, her steps echoing on the marble floor. She sat beside her daughter and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Do you remember?" she said softly. "The night you first spoke." The princess nodded shyly. "Yes, mother," I said. "Thank you." The Empress smiled. "Yes, and I cried." She touched the control panel on her wrist and a hologram appeared before them, a recording from that night in the garden. The image showed the princess kneeling beside Evan, wrapping his injured hand in silk. The soft whisper echoed once more, "Thank you." The Empress's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of peace. "I kept this recording," she said. "Whenever I forget what love sounds like, I listen to it." The princess looked at her mother with a warm smile.
"He didn't see a princess," she whispered.
"He saw me." "Yes," the Empress replied softly. "And because of that, everyone else can see you too." Later that evening, Evan and Mia were invited to dine with the royal family. The great hall glittered with silver and blue lights. The princess ran to greet them the moment they entered, laughing softly as she hugged Mia. "Come," she said, her voice bright and clear. "I want to show you something." She led them to a balcony overlooking the city. Below them, thousands of lanterns floated in the air, one for every world that had joined the new peace alliance. Evan's eyes widened. "It's beautiful," he said. The princess nodded. "They say each light carries a wish," Mia smiled. "Then I wish we can all stay friends forever." The princess laughed, her voice echoing like crystal bells. "That's the best wish." The Empress joined them, standing beside Evan. "You changed us," she said quietly. "Not with power, but with heart. Tell me, what do humans call such courage?" Evan smiled gently. "We call it love." The Empress looked out at the lanterns and whispered, "Then may love guide this empire for all eternity." As night fell, the celebration spread through the city. Music filled the streets, and for the first time in centuries, humans and aliens danced together. From her balcony, the princess watched the lights and turned to her mother. "Do you think the stars can hear us, Mother?" The Empress smiled. "If they can, I hope they hear your voice." Below, Evan lifted Mia onto his shoulders, watching the lanterns rise higher and higher. "Look, sweetheart," he said softly. "Even the stars are listening tonight." Mia pointed upward. "Papa, that one looks like a heart," he smiled. "Maybe it is." And far above the glowing world among the endless stars, the faint echo of a child's whisper traveled through space, gentle, warm, and everlasting. It was the sound of a princess's voice. It was the sound of humanity's compassion. It was the sound of a new beginning. The human janitor who made the mute princess whisper had not only changed one life, he had rewritten the destiny of an entire empire.